And we're live, apparently. Hello and good afternoon. Um, and I'm delighted that you are joining us again here on my webcast, How to Stay Sane in a Pandemic. And I hope to God that I've done everything right and that this actually is broadcasting. It's a very strange way of doing things when you've no real idea whether I could be just talking to myself, but no, I see I'm not talking to myself. So that's good. So you're all very welcome along, and it's nice to have you here with us again. And if you're watching this back later, as I know a lot of you did last week, so you're all very welcome whenever you're joining us, either live or a little bit later on. Just before I start, the first episode went out this time last week, and I'm absolutely delighted with the feedback. Number one, but also with the number of people who watched it. Over 4,500 views so far for episode one. So I'm very grateful to my guest last week, Caroline Grace Cassidy, and to all of you who watched it. It makes this old woman extremely happy. Anyway, as you can see, I've brought another victim in today to join us for a bit of crack. Declan Buckley, who is probably, as a lot of you who know me know, Declan and I are radio colleagues, where we both try and give advice to people about all kinds of problems, the problems of the world, every Monday on News Talk on the Moncrief Show. But Declan obviously is also an entertainer, a performer, a writer, and a broadcaster. And he's actually quite a well-read kind of a chap. So I'm sure that our conversation will be not only entertaining but also enlightening. No pressure, Declan. How are you?
I'm good. Now I'm unsure which hat to wear in this particular scenario. We get to chat a lot, especially before we do our broadcast, and we talk about all kinds of things. But when we're on the Moncrief Show, it's other people's lives and other people's problems. So this is a really strange new world for us.
I know. I miss seeing your face. I miss seeing your face in real life. As I say, we normally have a coffee and a good old chat before the show and sometimes after the show, and we haven't had that for a while.
We talk about everything, yeah, and it is the kind of one of the casualties of this new staying away from everybody kind of life, is that you don't get to see people. You just have to kind of do the job and nothing else, and that's
right.
Yeah.
And there is something about being in somebody else's energy, isn't there? Like when you're actually, it's not just the fact, I mean, we can talk here and I can actually see you, but there's something about being in somebody's actual real energy that is vital to all of us as humans. It's part of the whole.
I'm really a believer in the idea that we give off all of these kind of subliminals, and they're really important to how we actually communicate. Words are only one of the tools. And because I know that even like when we're on the radio and you can't see my face, it's hard to kind of get over some of our natural banter.
Yes.
Seeing each other's faces, yeah.
And it's much harder to slag somebody when you're not in their actual presence. It's not as spontaneous.
It's not hard to slag somebody. It's just harder to know how they react.
That's true. That's very true. Now, listen, before we get down to business, have you got your glass of wine? I'll be very disappointed if you don't.
When you were doing your opening to camera, I was like going, am I allowed? Is it like real cheeky to go for a sneaky?
No, cheers. Cheers. Good.
Yeah.
Listen, before we get into talking about books and podcasts and whatever else, as I said in my introduction, a large part of your work, and I know this because I pick up the pieces very often on a Monday of your performance night on a Sunday.
Off the record.
I'm not going to spill any. I'm not going to spill any secrets, but on a Sunday, obviously, a big part of your life is your performance as Shirley Temple Bar, hosting the bingo in the George, and obviously that has been a casualty. And it's really, you have done very little of that since back in March, because obviously there was the first lockdown, and then venues had to work out how they could work around the restrictions. So how are you finding that have you had to park Shirley? Is Shirley in a cupboard, or is Shirley still here?
Yeah, it's definitely been a strange change for my life, because since 1997, where I kind of accidentally became Shirley Temple Bar, and it accidentally became a portal into a whole new career for me that wasn't a plan at all. I've been doing that show more or less every Sunday, for 20 odd years. And for it then suddenly, without my consent, for it to be suddenly stopped, was bizarre and strange. During the first lockdown, I definitely tried to pivot and create new ways of doing kind of digital drag, is what we were calling it. And so did a lot of my compadre wouldn't be right. Whatever that word would be for a drag
Your
queen.
sisters, surely they're your
Yeah,
sisters.
yeah. Padre is father. Comadre? I don't know.
That sounds
Um,
a bit weird.
yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, we we are a bit weird.
Yeah,
We all
speak for
tried to
yourself.
make stuff happening, but it was kind of the actual venue when the George kind of shut down because the George was this brand new term wet pub. We couldn't actually ever go back there until we were given the kind of the nod. But there were venues within the chain of which the George belongs that weren't wet pubs that we found a way to do for a couple of months in the summer when it was a bit of a lesser lockdown. We were doing
Yeah,
stuff there, and that was a totally strange, totally different, very kind of safe and small and whatever. But it lacked all the fun, and it's like we were talking about earlier on. Being part of something isn't necessarily just the actual product that
yeah.
you make. It's the shared experience backstage, the shared experience afterwards. All that stuff are part of the experience. Or the fun of what I was doing, and I miss that a lot.
Yeah.
This lockdown, I kind of decided that I wasn't going to do so much of the online stuff because it's not that I'm incompetent with technology. It's just that there's too many variables, and drag up close like this isn't fun. It's not what I do. It's not my thing. I'm more of an interact with people kind of thing, and
And there's
like I'm
also no. I haven't actually ever. I haven't met Shirley in real life, but I know that an awful lot of what you do involves a lot of jumping around, which again doesn't really lend itself to this kind of a scenario, does
Yeah,
it?
no, it's very much a kind of a clowning type of approach. I mean, I know stupid jokes, stupid kind of you know antics and gymnastics and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Which has been, saved me having to go to the gym for many years because
yeah.
it's kept me kind of healthy and fit. Which is another problem is because I can't go to the gym now. I haven't got that outlet, so I'm going to get really big and
I
heavy
wasn't
and
going to. I wasn't going to mention to anybody the fact that you've put on 3 stone since the beginning of lockdown.
sugar-free wine, Barbara, all the way.
Okay, let's get down to business. I know from many of our chats that you are a reader and a voracious reader, and you always have a book or more on the go. So tell us, well, first of all, I want to know what you're reading right now. And then I want you to tell me about maybe 1 or 2 recommendations you've had of books that you've read recently. Not your favorite book of all times, but that
Yeah.
you'd like to share with us.
Yes, when you sit down and you decide you and the hubby are going to watch a bit of Netflix, and then you suddenly go, well, we haven't a plan. So you start flicking through and you
Oh,
have that choice panic. You know that
yeah.
thing. That's what it's been like for me because I knew you were going to ask me this question. So I've been kind of going, well, what am I going to say? Because everything you say is kind of, I don't want it to be about that kind of a book because I also like these kind of books and I like these kind of books and those, So I don't actually have a type of book that I like. I read broadly and
Widely.
widely and all manner of stuff. I'm not a book snob. It doesn't have to be a certain kind of thing. But I also will read books that are, a bit highbrow, for a lack of a better way of putting it. And so,
Intellectual.
yeah, because I love knowledge. I'm a kind of
Yeah.
a information queen. I want to know facts.
Yeah.
I need to know, like grad grind in hard times. I want facts, facts, facts. But I also want fun, 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 and a glass of wine. Don't get me wrong. But the fact
That's why
thing,
we're friends. That's why we're friends because
yeah,
you do all the hard work, so I don't have to, and then I can just
research,
ask you
Barbara. It's
questions
called
about stuff.
research. Yeah, but actually, so this lockdown, the first lockdown, I heard a lot of people saying that they couldn't read because they were finding it hard to concentrate. Whereas I had completely the opposite thing. I wanted to move away from a kind of a fictional world because I couldn't believe how mad the actual world was. So I got into reading essays and opinion pieces, like non-fiction writing. So I've been reading loads like Joan Didion, Susan Sontag, um, Noam Chomsky. Been reading loads of him, so I've radicalized myself into being a full-on anarchist now.
Great.
But in line with that, though, I found it really hard to get into fiction, to big books of fiction. I find myself plodding through those. So I was delighted when Sinead's book came out, the short story collection she came out with.
Who's Sinead? Sinead Burke.
No, Sinead Gleason. Sorry, Sinead
Oh,
Gleason.
sorry, I don't know who you're talking about.
This is
Sinead
massive.
Gleason.
So
Yes.
this is the art of the glimpse. So short
Yes.
stories because of that whole thing and not being able to get through a whole book. And a short story is a kind of a different kind of a thing to a novel in the sense that you don't have to hold all of the information for a long period of time to get to a finish. It's a kind of a, like it says here, it's a glimpse. So this is really
Give us the
fun.
name of that book because you're waving it around there and I can't see it. Yeah, The Art of the Glimpse.
Yes, the art
Very
of the
good.
glimpse. Now, it's a big, heavy book. I like to bring books to bed. Sinead, you're not coming to bed with me, I'm afraid. This is a
Yeah.
kind of a sitting on the couch, kind of having a short read. There are like very, very short stories, and there are kind of longer ones in there, but it's kind of varied and interesting. And if you're into that kind of thing, I've also
Do you
been
know
reading.
what?
Yeah, go
Just
ahead.
let me interrupt you there. Sorry. No, I always think that a book like that, because I'm like you, I like to read in bed, and obviously that is not going to work because you're not going to be able to hold it up. But I love a book like that to have downstairs, so that every time you stop to have a cup of coffee or you have your
Yeah,
lunch,
that's
you can
what
read
this
a
is
story. You
brilliant
can dip
for.
in and out of it all the
Yeah,
time.
and because it's short stories, because sometimes you can go, if it's the, if sorry, I just whacked that. If it's the, the collected works of, Charles Dickens or somewhere, that's a bit of a pain because, a novel you need to be kind of really engrossed in, whereas a short story, you
Yeah,
can if you just give it a short bit of time, and that's kind of what I've been doing with this. I mean, it's obviously in an order. I'm not sure. Sinead would probably tell us what the order means. It doesn't mean anything, but
yeah.
I'm flipping through. I'm reading it kind of arse to backways and stuff, and
Dipping in
and I
and out.
haven't made a dent in this, so you know,
Yeah,
it's good.
that's what you're at the moment. Okay, good,
Yeah.
good.
Um, I was telling you I was reading. I said I've been reading a lot of essays and stuff, and it is a bit highfalutin and stuff, but because there's so much madness and the American election was going on and Brexit's happening, so kind of reacquainting myself with stuff I studied in college, with regard to economics and politics and all that kind of stuff has been, that's been part of what my motivation is. And also just sometimes it's really good to, people like Joan Didion or Susan Sontag are kind of more cultural, like commenters, I suppose,
Yes,
say interesting things. And, whether that's a big, profound thought or it's just a lovely written sentence, I love that kind of reading. So it's not,
yes,
again, it's not a novel, it's not a story, it's just thoughts
yeah.
and words, which is where this guy comes in. Actually, I just finished reading
Oh, I
Patrick
have
Stone.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
brilliant.
so he's a gas bastard altogether. He's very funny,
He's
the
very
Irish man,
funny.
really funny. He is also kind of one of these cultural observers. So it's kind of hard to describe this, but he does a really good version of describing it himself. He kind of calls it like, is it an autobiography from somebody who isn't particularly famous or something, which I kind of thought was kind of brilliant because
Yeah, yeah.
it's, it's a memoir, but he's not saying, oh, these are all the things I've accomplished, but he's done some really funny things.
So
But it's
good,
just
good.
commenting on these things. So sometimes you're going, oh, the same thing happened to me. But but sometimes you're going, you're a weirdo. That never happened to me. And I've done some weird things, Patrick Frame. That
Yeah,
was weird. So
you've
yeah, but
got
that's
some
really
of it.
fun, and it's really this is a kind of reading in bed kind of book. So
Yeah, great. I have that.
yeah, it's funny, and it's a kind of a nice.
God, we need funny. We so need funny.
It
Actually, let me
is.
just share the book that I've just finished reading because I'm not like you reading kind of intellectual
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
things.
I haven't read
But
anything yet, so.
Graham's latest book, which is Homestretch, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, Graham Norton is not necessarily a fantastic writer, but he's a good storyteller, and
Hmm.
the story is excellent, and it's very easy to read. It won't tax you. It won't necessarily change your worldview particularly, but it's a lovely, easy, quick read. So if anybody's looking for a nice, easy, quick read, definitely. And he makes me puke because he's so busy doing all his other stuff, and then he goes off down to West Cork in the summer and writes a bloody book. I go
Yes,
down
it's
to
wine as
sorry,
well, isn't it?
yeah,
Do you have?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Have
you
you?
should do, Declan. You should have maybe a what you call it, a vineyard somewhere. Do
We
you know
always
Shirley
go.
Temple? Oh, that'd be great. Shirley's Temple Bar, Shirley's Bar of Temples. There's something you can do there, and you could have wine, and then I could get free wine from you, and
I
that would be
think
great.
Pantry Bar already beat me to that particular kind of joke, but
No, yeah, but that's no, but I'm saying
encroachment
take
is what we call that.
no, but you need to take it out and do an actual, proper vineyard. Never mind the bar, do the vineyard, but you could use the bar in some way in the title.
And with global warming happening, I could probably do it in the Midlands, and
Yeah,
it'd probably be fine. Yeah,
and it'd be cheap as chips.
bog wine.
Bog wine. There you go. There you
Yeah,
go. Off you
that would
go.
be great. I'll research that now. I'll definitely have a look and see. I'm looking at this to see another one because it kind of relates to what you were talking about, my work and about how the COVID thing has kind of stopped uh, art
Performance.
in its
Yeah.
tracks. I read this book, which is Olivia Lang. I
Funny
think it's
weather.
Lang. Funny Weather, Art in an Emergency. Now, Funny Weather Art. This book was written before COVID, and it's kind of a collection of her writings. She's as well as being a novelist and kind of an essayist, I suppose. She also writes for various magazines. She used to write for a magazine called Freeze, and so it's kind of compilation of some of her stuff. In the context of coronavirus decimating, our lives in the shared social way and in the production of kind of art, it's a really kind of a timely book to read because it kind of inspired me because it reminded me that art is always being made in a time like
Yeah.
life is difficult,
Yeah.
and also that many of the great writers and stuff like that have been put up against stuff and still managed to kind of do
Yeah.
their shtick, whatever it is. So, it was really interesting because in the context of stuff which we'll probably be talking about in a bit, she interviewed Hilary Mantel.
All right.
Yeah, which is it's a really good interview actually, and Hilary Mantel has a really interesting life,
Mm.
which I wasn't aware of, and was very ill and kind of overcame illness as well as kind of this mad roller coaster lifestyle. Her husband and she got married, went to live in the I think it's the Middle East. Didn't work out. They split up, divorced. She got very ill. They got back together again, got remarried. I'm probably getting the sequence of this all. It's flashbacks.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Yeah, but then she in all of that she still manages just to write two there's three
No,
actually now.
huge, huge
Huge
important
books.
books.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know people like that make me feel very inadequate. Anyway, come here. That's all great. Tell us. You'd be a listener of podcasts, would you? Do you listen to podcasts?
Yeah, but you know what? what I've been doing lately is trying to listen to more music because I was kind of listening to I was reading books, and as I said, they were a bit kind of factual. So having a factual voice in your head and everything is the news,
Yeah.
and it just got a bit kind of over the top. So just in the short journeys I've been making, I've been listening to music, Spotify and stuff. Podcasts, so I do listen to David McWilliams' podcast because I think
His
he has
podcasts are excellent,
interesting
actually.
takes on stuff. And what else? And the Irish History podcast as well. I love history. So I started way back. I mean, this podcast has been around for a long time, but I only got into it probably the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
I think it might even be a weekly podcast because there are hundreds of episodes. A guy
Episodes,
called
yeah.
Tim Dwyer does them. And yeah.
But it's lovely. It's really lovely to find something like that you enjoy, and then find there's all this back catalogue of stuff that you can, wade
Amazing.
through.
Yeah.
So they're two really good suggestions. Music wise, then you'd be. I mean, you're not as old as I am, but you're not that much younger either. So would you? Would your? Even though you dye your hair and I don't. Would you? Would you? Would you?
Jesus, sorry. Dye my hair. What color is yours
Music.
now?
Music. I mean, my kids give out to me because they tell me that my musical taste hasn't really changed since I was about in my mid-20s. And I think that's a fair point. And if you look at my Spotify playlists, there's very little new music on. Would you be well up to date and down with the kids with all the newer music?
No, but
No. Good.
part of one of the side effects though of doing a show like I've been doing in the George for years is that I work with all these kind of younger kids who are listening to this music and they're performing with it. So I mean I would be pretty much up to date.
Aware.
Yeah, I'd be
But
able
you're not
to,
choosing to listen to it.
some of it. Again, I did stop listening to music a lot. In the last, I said 5 years, I would have been a lot more into music, but I think I've
Oh.
definitely, I've dialed that back a bit. Um, but I would know that Kylie Minogue's new album out. I would know that.
But that's because you're gay, really, isn't it? It's got nothing to do with music.
That should be on the back of her album. What a review! What a review! Yeah, no, that's true. Although her catalog, her new album, I mean, is it's gone very disco. It would bring you back to those kind
I
of
like
90s.
disco. I
Yeah,
absolutely love disco. I mean, the
yeah,
heyday disco was brilliant.
yeah. So it's kind of that vibe. That's kind of where Kylie's kind of at her
Gone
best.
back
Is
to.
when she's doing kind of just
Oh,
that
good.
that genre of dancey music. The kind of
Yeah.
and it's easy listening kind of, without being
Right.
easy.
Yeah, wouldn't be a big fan of Kylie, but sure. Anyway, come here then. Go back to the sofa when you're sitting on the sofa with your husband and you're flicking through the Netflix. What have you watched recently that has entertained you or amused you or distracted you or helped you to stay sane?
Um, we have been watching kind of stuff on Netflix. Last weekend was the Cork Film Festival, so instead of doing the Netflix thing, we did that, which was really interesting. And a lot of festivals are kind of having to
Not-
pivot into that kind of scenario where they're putting the stuff
Okay,
online.
you've now said pivot twice.
Yeah,
You're only allowed to say pivot one more time, and then I
no,
cut you off.
you're allowed to say it twice because that brings you back to where you were.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
So fair
yeah,
enough.
yeah.
Okay,
It's dancing. It's a dance term, darling.
okay.
Anyway, so the Cork Film Festival, we watched that last weekend. We saw 4 films, which is quite the undertaking when, you're trying to fit it into your house, but it's in your house.
And these
Um,
aren't short films, are they? These are
no,
like
no,
full
no,
length
they
features.
did have shorts. It's a full film festival catalog, and
Right.
you go onto the website. You find what you want to watch. You can buy movies on their own, or you can get a kind of a ticket that allows you to see a number of them. That's what we did. And we watched a really interesting French film called Vaurien, which I think means, they translated as meaning rascal. But that sounds a lot more gentle. It's kind of a movie about a kind of a, it's basically a sociopath really, but it's a really interesting story because all of the pathology happens kind of off screen, and on screen he's trying to be all nice to all these people, but you can kind of catch glimmers of his behavior. So it's a kind of a study rather than a kind of a plot.
Right.
We watched a film called Luxor, which was set in the
Egypt.
Egyptian town there, and it's basically about a foreign aid worker, a British foreign aid worker who kind of goes there to kind of escape from stuff that she's going through, and ends up hooking up with an old ex, and it's all a bit of a, it's about the past, about the past and how the past is always there. And but Luxor is beautiful, and Andrew and I went to Luxor about 12 years ago, and it's such a stunning place. So that was the real draw
Yeah.
for me in that one. And then we also saw a black and white movie from 1926 called Irish Destiny, which it's one of the kind of earliest Irish historical black and white films.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and with the black and white, so it has a score by Micheál Suleiman, that was composed in the 1990s,
I was
and
going to say, I don't think he was around back
yeah,
then.
yeah, he wasn't. Well, actually, there's a really interesting story about it. The film wasn't around for a long time. The film was made in the 1920s, was a bit of a box office hit here, didn't really travel very well, and as a result, the guy who made it didn't really make any more movies. So the movie was kind of forgotten about, and then it was kind of uncovered in the
Wow.
1990s in the U.S. Library of Congress, where the only copy of it that was left was there. So, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, really good
And
story.
Declan, if anybody wants to look, if anybody wants to look up those movies, is it possible to look back on them somewhere? Where do they
Yeah,
go?
and the problem with film festivals is that they, and this is real film festivals in the live, is
In the
that
real
you
world?
see them there and they might not be released for a while. However,
Right.
Netflix and all of these, big, libraries are getting these movies from festivals faster. So it just always the line used to go festivals, then cinema release, and then onto the telly.
Um,
But now
yeah.
Netflix is kind of like Netflix has a new Sophia Loren movie out now
I
with
saw that. I saw that somewhere. It's an Italian movie, right?
her son directed it. I think it's an
Yeah.
Italian. Yeah, it is an Italian, but it's
With
not set in
subtitles.
Italy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Netflix
but
actually wrote to me and said, "Dear Barbara, we think you'd like this movie." So that's where I
yeah, I
saw it.
think you
Actually,
would
only
too. I think you would too because I was looking at it there yesterday, and so basically she's playing a Holocaust survivor. Presumably that means she's Jewish, living in the Middle East somewhere, who befriends the kind of troubled Arab
boy,
boy, and it's
boy,
about the
yes.
dynamics of what she learns about herself and what he learns. So
Yeah, no,
it's a
that
little
looks
bit,
interesting. That
yeah,
looks interesting. I'll definitely go to watch this. You mentioned the fact that you and Andrew were in Luxor in Egypt a few years ago, and again, I know that you're quite the jet setter, and
I wouldn't say
you
that, but
travel you
yeah,
travel quite a bit.
yeah.
Where, when you close your eyes and dream, because I only worked out yesterday, I was asking on Twitter for people to post their last foreign trip. on Twitter so we could get this kind of like all these foreign photos, because it's over a year since I've been abroad, which I know, like first world problems and all that, but still, I think it's the first time in probably 40 years that it's been that long since I've actually stepped out of Ireland. Um, so, I mean, I know, like last night I was dreaming I was in New York, and another night, obviously, I was dreaming I was in Australia. But where do you dream about going as soon as all of this is over? Where are you thinking, what, we need to
Yeah.
go? Where?
I mean, that's a tough question again. That's the Netflix, what do I want out of it? I
This
think
is a very tough webcast. I don't know why you thought it was going to be easy, Declan. I was going to ask easy questions. Do you
I
know?
think I've discovered that my two favorite countries in Europe are Italy and Greece. They're
Yeah,
because they kind of give me the right combination of nice weather, nice food, and
food
cultural kind of historical shenanigans
stuff.
that I need to be occupied by.
Yeah,
So I think, and Greece is further afield. Italy is easier to get to. I've done kind of short trips to Florence and to Venice. So if it could, and wintertime as well. So I mean, I would do that if I was allowed to travel and there was no complications. I would be on a plane to Italy ASAP. Um,
ASAP.
yeah,
And what
yeah,
about in Ireland? Now that we're kind of contained
yeah.
for the moment again within we're contained within 5 kilometers.
We talked
Where
about
would,
this, about how rediscovering Ireland, and about how, like, I've got family, and my brother lives down in Youghal, so often we'd be down in that neck of the woods and exploring around there. So we know around there quite well, and obviously to get there you have to kind of go through the interior. But it had been a long time since I yeah, since I'd travelled to Connemara. We went to Connemara during the summer, and that just blew my mind again. It reminded me, it's really what a gorgeous place. I mean, beautiful. So looking forward to getting to do that a bit more. I have never been to the top tip of Donegal, so I think that's top of my
oh my
list.
God, Vicky Phelan was tweeting yesterday or the day before about wanting to go to Donegal as soon as she could and as soon as we were able to. And I was reminded that actually the last flight I took, which was nearly a year ago, was Paul and I flew from Dublin to Donegal last December for a long weekend. We went over to Derry. But that flight from Dublin up to Donegal and the airport, Carrickfinn, I think it's called, it's quite far north. It's up kind of near Gweedore, that kind of area, but the flight itself was gorgeous, And I mean, we flew in December. Now the weather was quite nice, but you're flying at like I think it's 10,000 feet, so you've got a great view of the
Yeah.
countryside the whole way up. But the approach into Carrickfinn, and
Mm.
I know it's one of these world-renowned, approaches, but it is. You could be on a sunny day, you could be landing into the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Beautiful beaches. It is just magnificent. So I would absolutely recommend if anybody wants to go to Donegal, consider taking a flight because the flights are subsidized, I think. And as far as I know, we paid about €70 each to fly from Dublin Airport. But it's not because it's cheaper or it's easier, because obviously then you have to hire a car. It's because it's so beautiful to do that. So definitely, that'd be something I would dying to
Yeah,
do
we went
again.
back to. I think definitely. I mean, it is somewhere that I have never. It just feels like it's far away, but I think that's ludicrous. Especially because all the roads are so much better than they were when I was
Yeah.
five and tried to make the journey. So,
And I remember
um,
when I was growing up, and again, me being a lot older than you, kind of getting to the very northern tip of Donegal, the kind of most straightforward, I think I'm right now, not looking at a map, would be to go through Northern Ireland. Back in the
mm,
days when you just didn't go through Northern
mm,
Ireland, like you know what I mean. So
yeah,
having to go all the way around
no,
kind of made Donegal.
yeah,
And I think a lot of us kind of think, oh, it's very far away, but it's actually not as far away as we think, and definitely well worth the thing. Um, have you discovered anything about you? This is a bit of a philosophical question. Have you discovered anything about yourself that you didn't know as a result of this kind of period of restricted living? The fact that you can't go abroad, the fact that we've been locked down twice. Like a lot of us have been thrown back on our own inner resources. And have you discovered anything about yourself or discovered anything that you like to do that you didn't realize you'd like to do and you'd like to do more of, or a hobby that you want to carry on, or anything like that?
yeah. I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about, did I want to say something profound? I mean, the one thing I've discovered during the lockdown is that I don't really like social media, and I definitely pulled away from that a lot. Um, it wasn't,
Wow. Okay.
I wasn't enjoying it. So I just decided to be, I suppose, self, um, what's the word? Looking out for myself in that regard, and just going, you know what, I'm not gonna
Self-preservation.
Yeah, but also just not being kind of pulled along by the crowd, going that's where everybody is, which it seems kind of ludicrous because I can't see my mates not be on social media, but that just means that I'm kind of going, well, we have to find different ways to interact. Um,
Yeah.
but in the positive sense, I was talking to my dad today about this, and this is not something that I've already done, but my dad, who's like in his 80s, when he was younger, was a chess player, and obviously the Queen's Gambit on Netflix was on,
Wow.
and we were talking about that. I think myself and Andrew watched it. We loved it. Um, Convinced my parents to start watching it. So my dad's kind of
Yeah.
watching it from the point of view of somebody who really likes chess, and like every
And
day his
understand
first
what
thing in
they're
the back of the
doing.
Irish Times is to go the chess puzzle, and he kind of
Yeah.
when the characters in the Queen's Gambit are talking about these various moves, he knows them because that's was his hobby for a long time. So I've decided that I'm going to start playing chess with my dad. I haven't done it yet, but that's going to be something that once I get the once I get up the nerve to take him on, because he's going to be like, oh for God's sake, like playing a 2-year-old. So I need to kind of
And have you ever played chess? Like when you were a kid,
yeah,
did
no,
you
yeah,
play
yeah.
chess?
My
So you
dad
have an idea. You're
also
not starting
played
from
chess.
scratch.
Oh no, no, no. I mean, we would have been playing chess when we were kids. But as I said,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I think the reason why I stopped playing chess was that, if we were taking the game seriously, my dad wouldn't let me win. So I wouldn't win. So, you
See?
know,
Yeah, no, we
yeah,
shouldn't let you win either. That's made you the
no,
man you are, like, you know
well,
what I
there
mean?
you
Not being
go.
allowed to win.
That's
Of course
it.
he wouldn't let you win.
I haven't
Oh,
stopped winning since.
winning at life and winning at everything. Listen, we've done a half an hour and already,
You know what,
and
Barbara? We could talk all day.
we could talk all day and probably all night as well. And it's got dark out while we were talking here. Um, but listen, I really want to thank you for all of that. We'll put up some of those suggestions. I'll put them out on Twitter and Facebook a little bit later for people if they want to look back on those movies and the books in particular that you suggested. But in the meantime, you've been an absolute star bear as per usual. And I will be talking to you on the radio on Monday
Yeah.
at 2:30 on News Talk on the
Yeah.
Moncrief show for So You Think You're an Adult, where we solve all the problems in the entire world.
Get
Declan,
our own.
except our own. Yeah. No, well, I solve yours and you solve mine, so we're all good. Listen,
Namaste.
thank you so much. Namaste. Thank you. Finish your glass of wine.
Okay.
Have a great
I
evening.
will.
Thanks.
You
Thanks
too.
everybody for
Bye
joining
again.
us. Really appreciate it. And we'll be doing it all again next week, please God, if I can find another willing guinea pig to come along and share some suggestions of how to stay sane in a pandemic. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.